Good morning, YouTube. Welcome back, guys. Fridays are their holy day in Iraq, so it's always a lighter news day. Last Tuesday, an article came through, and at the beginning of July, Iraq had their budget appealed. That is the most critical step regarding the rate change. Again, back on July 3rd, Iraq's three-year tripartite budget was appealed through their federal court. That was the most critical step regarding the rate change. If you guys would like to learn more about that, please consider joining us at Dinar Investor on Patreon. A secondary article came out on that this past Tuesday. It says the Federal Supreme Court is considering the appeals. The federal court is announcing they're considering reviewing the appeals that were filed back on July 3rd. And again, this right here, you have no idea how important or critical this step was of appealing the budget. This is the most critical step regarding the rate change. I strongly recommend it's well worth your time to consider learning about this step of the budget getting appealed. It's very critical to the rate change. It's the most important step for the rate change at this time. Baghdad and Erbil signed an agreement on full compliance with the provisions of the General Budget Law. Just remember, the budget can only be implemented at a specific time in the year, okay? Not any time. That's the reason why we haven't seen the budget or the rate change at this time. The rate change is linked to the timing of the budget. They're two peas in a pod. They're kind of married together in a way. Here's the article.
A government source revealed on Thursday that Baghdad and Erbil signed an agreement regarding full compliance with the provisions of the General Budget Law, while indicating that the agreement includes the regional government taking over the delivery of oil to the Federal Ministry of Oil. The source told the Iraqi news agency, INA, the federal government and the Kurdistan region signed today Thursday an agreement regarding full compliance to implementing the provisions of the Federal General Budget Law, which was legislated by the parliament and published in the Iraqi Gazette. The source added, the agreement provides for the implementation of what was stated in Article 12/2/C, whereby the regional government undertakes to hand over the oil to the Federal Ministry of Oil. Then the Federal Ministry of Finance undertakes to compensate the regional government for the costs of producing and transporting the oil actually received from the region. And the cost of a barrel is calculated according to the average cost the Federal Ministry of Oil, as stated in the text of the law. It continued, the agreement also stipulated that the regional government hand over all non-oil revenues 100%, and deposit them in the account of the Ministry of Finance at the central bank in accordance with the financial management law, noting that the Federal Ministry of Finance receives 50% of the revenues of the border crossings of the region, similar to the Iraqi governorates others that have border crossings and receive such a percentage according to Article 21/2 of the federal budget. The source explained. The agreement included the formation of a committee from both parties to follow up on non-oil revenues in the region, provided that it finishes its work within a month in accordance with the budget law, explaining that the Ministry of Finance in the Kurdistan region is funded according to Article 12/2/E of the budget, provided that the regional government continues to implement the budget law, especially Article 12/2/A, B, C, D, according to the mechanisms agreed upon above.
Next article here. Parliament convenes on Monday to read the amendment of the law confiscating the funds of Saddam's regime officials and other laws update. One thing I want to point out to you guys with the laws. There's a critical step in this that might be worth it for you guys to learn more about. They are not completing any laws at this time. The most they are doing, they are starting laws and getting completed only up to a second reading. That is a critical step regarding the rate change. If you guys would like to learn more about that, you're always welcome to join us on Patreon, okay? And we'll help you understand why they're only completing laws up to 2 readings. Here's the article.
The Iraqi parliament will hold a regular session next Monday to discuss 7 draft laws, including the seizure and confiscation of movable and immovable funds belonging to the pillars of Saddam's regime. According to the parliament's agenda, Parliament is scheduled to vote during Monday's session on the draft law for the Institute for the Preparation of Police Commissioners, and the First Amendment Bill for the Private Security Companies Law. It is also hoped that he will vote on the draft law on Iraq's accession to the International Convention for Search and Rescue at Sea, as well as on the first reading of the draft law on the First Amendment to the law on seizure and confiscation of movable and immovable property belonging to the pillars of the previous regime. According to the agenda, the second reading of the draft law on the Second Amendment to the Personal Liability Insurance Law for employees of state departments and the public sector will be decided and discussed, and the second reading of the draft law on Iraq's accession to the 1977 Protocol to amend the International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships will be decided and discussed, as well as the report and discussion of the second reading of the draft the law of Iraq's accession to the Marrakesh Treaty to facilitate access to published works for persons who are blind, visually impaired, or people with other print disabilities.
The Minister of Finance stresses the importance of expediting the procedures for reviewing the instructions for implementing the general budget law. Notice how this is one budget item that just keeps getting brought up. Reason why it's not getting implemented, the instructions or the budget itself or the rate change, is because, again, all these steps are linked together. The budget has a specific period of time at which it's allowed to be implemented. That's not right now, okay? That's why they keep talking about these steps instead of doing them. There's a specific point in the year, and they can only implement the budget at that specific point in the year, okay? It's called a budget period. And we're not there yet. If you guys would like to learn more about that, you're welcome to join us on Patreon, and we'll help you out, get you trained. Okay, here's the article for you guys.
Finance Minister Taif Sami and State Council President Karim Khamis stressed the importance of completing the instructions for implementing the tripartite budget. And a statement by the Ministry of Finance, received by Al-Malumah, said, Sami stressed, during the meeting with the President of the State Council, the importance of expediting procedures for reviewing the instructions for implementing the federal general budget for the years 2023, 2024, and 2025 number 13 of 2023, which was recently approved by the House of Representatives, by doubling coordination and cooperation efforts with all parties, relevant authorities and institutions. And Sami stressed, according to the statement, the need to match the instructions for implementing the budget with the draft law, and to complete the audit and codification processes and everything related to the removal of duplicate texts in order to make it easier for spending units in ministries and agencies not linked to the ministry to implement them clearly, and to ensure optimal performance according to economic and development priorities, financial transparency, and improving efficiency. Public spending and keenness on economic justice and emphasis on reaching support to those who deserve it, in addition to moving towards advancing sustainable development and facing international and local economic challenges. She urged the Minister of Finance for the Ministry of Planning to issue the necessary controls to facilitate the task of listing projects of an investment nature, as well as all listing requirements. The statement indicated that the technical coordination meetings have been continuing since the beginning of this week between the Ministry and the Instructions Implementation Committee, with the participation of representatives of all concerned authorities.
Next article. This is the same one as the one before, where Taif Sami, the Finance Minister, stresses the importance for completing the instructions for implementing the tripartite budget. And again, it's just clearly waiting on the budget period to be able to implement the budget and implement the budget instructions, change the rate, and all that good stuff. Again, all of this is hinged on a calendar period of time. The Kurdistan Regional Government announces the date for the arrival of the financial dues and the distribution of salaries.
The head of the Media and Information Department in the Kurdistan Regional Government, Jushi Erbil, announced on Thursday the date for the arrival of financial dues for the Kurdistan region and the distribution of employee salaries. Adel said in a brief statement received by Shafak News Agency, it is, concerning those who receive salaries, next week the financial dues will arrive. He added that salaries will be directly distributed to employees and workers in the public sector in the region. And the Kurdistan Regional Government announced, at dawn on Thursday, that it had reached an agreement on employee salaries with the federal government. Omid Sabah, the head of the Regional Cabinet Office, Omid Sabah, who heads the Kurdish delegation, said in an interview reported to Shafak news agency, "We reached an agreement after the meeting of the Kurdistan Regional Government delegation on Wednesday with the federal government in Baghdad about implementing the budget law with the aim of sending financial dues to the Kurdistan region." He continued, "In this context, a joint memorandum was signed between the two delegations, and funding for the Kurdistan region is scheduled to start immediately."
Next article. AlSudani constantly directs the pursuit of speculators and currency smugglers in Iraq.
Today, Thursday, the Prime Minister, Mohammed Shia al-Sudani, chaired a meeting that included officials and representatives of government and security agencies concerned with combating and prosecuting economic crime. A statement issued by the Sudanese media office stated that, during the meeting, current efforts were followed up in tracking down currency smugglers, criminal networks, and elements working to sabotage the local economy and violating the law and people's rights. The statement quoted al-Sudani as saying that these efforts receive special attention from the government, as they are a pillar of economic reform and the fight against corruption. Al-Sudani also directed the necessity of working within an integrated and continuous system between the agencies concerned with economic crime and the continuation of the pursuit of speculators, currency smugglers, and evaders from paying customs and taxes. In the field of precautionary executive measures, the Prime Minister directed a study of the deployment of mobile or fixed checkpoints on the main roads linking the border crossings, in order to limit the transfer or smuggling of unmarked goods and goods that harm the Iraqi economy through their illegal entry into the country.
Next article. This is our last one. Again, lighter news days on Fridays. It's their holy day. Central Bank. Iraq annually imports goods worth $60 billion. And here's that article for you guys.
The governor of the Central Bank of Iraq, Ali al-Alak, announced that Iraq imports goods worth $60 billion annually. Al-Alak said in an interview with Al-Iraqi News channel, which was viewed by Al-Iqtisad News, that the daily announcement of the sale of the dollar by the Central Bank of Iraq cannot be considered an actual sale, as we transferred $200 million through the dollar sale window, so $150 million may be accepted from it and the rest it is classified under several boxes, including refusal, requesting information, or pending. He stressed that Iraqi trade needs more than what we sell from the dollar through the window, noting that 118 exchange companies have turned to deal with new banks instead of the banks that were punished by the U.S. Treasury. He pointed out that the Western Union and MoneyGram companies will be transferred to work with new banks instead of the previous ones, during the next week, noting that the level of financial inclusion in Iraq is still low despite the high percentage of the population. And he indicated that the rights of citizens in the punished banks are preserved through the Deposit Guarantee Company, and that the punished banks do not suffer from a liquidity crisis.
That's it, guys. Hope you guys have an amazing Friday. Take care and have a great, wonderful weekend. Stay healthy.